Welcome. Welcome to the Books and Music Review Show. You're seeing us behind the scenes. Oh, you can't even see me. I'm in here. I'm going to introduce John to you in about 1 minute. And what we're going to do is put the opinions, our disclaimer on, and then we're going to switch you to camera 3 or 2. And John, so the few other different topics we're going to talk about today are...
We're going to be talking about kayak fishing, maybe some bottle hunting, talk about my ducks and my chickens a little bit, and my hobby of raising worms.
Raising worms.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, wait a minute. You really raise worms?
Yeah, I got to tell you all about it.
Tell me, how do you start raising worms?
Okay, you start with shredded paper and vegetables, and then you add worms to it. And the worms eat the worms eat everything up.
So shredded paper, can I put that like in a box or?
Yeah, all you do is you take either a box or a plastic container, you fill it with shredded paper, you wet it to the consistency, not that it's soaking wet, just so that it's just slightly moist. Mm-hmm. And then to that you add vegetables.
Right.
Like any of your leftover vegetables that you make for the day at your house. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the day, you take those vegetables, you throw them in the box, and then in that box you add these worms that I sell. They're called red wriggler worms.
Ah.
They sell for around $20 a pound. You can buy them anywhere. They eat up to their weight a day in vegetable matter. And so how I all started doing it, see, I have a giant garden, and what I would do is I would go down to Sagayan Avenue to get horse manure. Mm-hmm. And when I got the horse manure, I always noticed that there were these little red worms. Mm-hmm. So I took the little red worms and I separated them and put them in with some shredded paper, and over time they multiplied. And now I have over 200 or 300 pounds of worms.
Wow.
That live in my greenhouse. Mm-hmm. And I go to food banks, and I get food that's been thrown out already. So I go to food banks and call them up and ask if they have any food they're throwing out. Mm-hmm. So instead of them throwing the food directly into the into the garbage, I take the food, I feed it to my worms in my greenhouse, and then I take shredded paper. I get huge amounts of shredded paper. I soak it in a garbage can, and then I make it into like a soil, and then I lay down the vegetables, and on top of the vegetables I put down the shredded paper. And over the last 17 years that I've been doing it, I've now acquired an enormous amount of soil, an enormous amount of worms.
Now wait, this is outdoors, right?
This is in my greenhouse. I have
your greenhouse is so cool.
Yeah, I have my own greenhouse.
How big is your greenhouse?
My greenhouse is 12 feet by 10 feet. I've had it for
That's
about
nice.
17 years.
Yeah.
And I do all my own gardening in there. Uh-huh. I start all my seedlings in there. I have all my tomatoes already and my peppers, my eggplant. Uh-huh. And then, so in the greenhouse right now, I have, with the worms, I have a chicken. Mm-hmm. His name's Chick Chick, and Chick Chick lives in the greenhouse because we have red-tailed hawks.
Right.
And we don't want the red-tailed hawks eating Chick Chick. Chick Chick is a girl. She gives me an egg a day. Mm-hmm. All I feed her is the leftover vegetables that I have from the end of the day. I take the vegetables, throw it into the floor, and she eats whatever she wants out of it. And every morning, I get an egg a day. Mm-hmm. I also have a pet duck, and my duck's name is Duck Duck. I've had Duck Duck now for 8 years. Duck Duck is not a pet. He's just a duck that lives on the pond. I live on a pond in Staten Island called Jack's Pond. Mm-hmm. And he lives on the pond, and whenever this duck sees me, because I'm in a wheelchair, so whenever the duck sees me, the duck runs over to me and doesn't want to leave me and hangs out with me. I can pick him up and hold him, and nobody else. He runs from everybody else. Uh-huh. But as soon as Duck Duck sees me, he comes over, runs over. I can pick him up, put him on my lap. And
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the worms. So, say I have myself a few worms already, right?
Okay.
So I take the worms. Say I got a little Tupperware box or something like that.
Yeah, you
What's
want.
the first thing? I really learn slow. So what's the first thing that I put in this plastic box?
Okay, you take the plastic box.
And go a little bit slower. So
Okay, the best thing to do, I would say, is don't put any holes in it.
no.
No, because you can control the water that's inside the environment. In
Yeah.
other words, you don't ever want the worms to be living in a environment where it's soupy wet,
Yeah.
because then you get the smells start to build up.
Uh-huh.
So let's say you take a plastic container, don't put any holes in it,
Uh-huh.
fill it with shredded paper.
Shredded paper.
But when you add water to it, you only add maybe a half a cup of water and really dig it down deep.
Right.
You do not want the shredded paper to be in any way soaking wet, just barely wet.
So that's what I did wrong. I had soaking wet paper.
That's what you probably do. You got to keep it
So I got the drier paper, but wet paper, and what goes in after that?
Okay, so when you have this semi-dry paper that's shredded, you put the vegetables in there, and then you put the worms in. For an average size container, I recommend like a pound of worms.
Right.
The worms eat up to their weight a day in vegetable matter.
Wow.
So if you don't want to ever overfill your bin, because if you overfill your bin, heat will build.
So how do you know if you're overfilling
That's
the bin?
just it. You just keep an eye on it.
Keep an eye on it. So check it once a day?
No, about once a week I would feed them at first.
Okay.
Get into the habit. And now the other thing is you do not ever want to put too much wet vegetable, because if you add too much wet vegetable, now you're going to have a wet environment. If it does occur, the way to correct it is just add more dry,
Add more paper.
shredded paper.
Okay.
And try to always keep a consistency where it's drier than wetter. And the reason why is worms love to crawl in between things where they can breathe.
Wow.
And not only that, when things are wet, they tend to smell more. Okay? So if you're interested, you live on Staten Island, and you want to get rid of your vegetable scraps, let's say. Yeah, just get yourself a bin, some shredded paper, and get yourself some red worms. You know, so I would like to talk a little about something else.
So what
Yeah.
specifically would you like to talk about? You talk about almost anything. We just don't sell things, but we can recommend things. And
Yeah.
you know what? If the viewers want more information about anything at all that you talked about, if you're glad to accept some
Yes.
emails from them or something like that,
I don't
we can
mind.
tell them where to get in touch with you for more information.
Yeah, there's a way. We'll give you that at the end of the
Yeah.
show.
So what's the other thing you wanted to talk about?
Well, last night I went kayaking on the ocean, and I go kayaking. I went over 100 times last year. What I do is I launch my kayak usually at the bottom of Cleveland Avenue, and we go out. Well, I can't tell you exactly where I fish, but I go out.
You just did.
I just did. I just did.
Okay.
I don't want to be a spot burner, so I'm
Okay.
not going to tell you my exact spot. But I
Okay.
fish Great Kills Harbor,
Okay.
somewhere in Great Kills Harbor. And, we went out last night. We snagged the bunker, which are fish about 12 or 13 inches long.
What do you mean? A bunker is a fish?
It's a fish.
Ah.
And you take a three-way hook. It's pretty gross.
Oh.
You snag them, and then you take the fish, you drop it down, and then a big giant striped bass comes and
Really?
eats him.
You're
basically.
kidding.
I'm not kidding you. And last night I got 3.
Now, I want to know about the bunker fish. What exactly is a bunker fish?
A bunker is a fish that's related to herring.
Oh, really?
It's a fish that doesn't eat food like any other normal fish.
What does it eat?
It lives on plankton.
Oh, okay.
Microscopic.
So it's a vegetarian fish.
It's a vegetarian fish.
Wow.
And it's a fish that lives on the whole east coast of the United States. And wherever you have these
So
fish.
wait, do you mind if I interrupt you with
No.
questions?
Well, what? Not
Okay,
at all.
so the vegetarian fish, I'm interested in a bunker, but you're using it to catch a different fish. So is a bunker like not good to eat or what?
Correct. Bunker is a fish that lives on the east coast of the United States. There are millions of tons of them.
And what do they look like?
They look like a herring. They have a spot on the side of
Uh-huh.
they're about this big.
Yeah.
they live in giant
So
schools.
can you tell the difference between a herring and a bunker?
Absolutely. A bunker is much, much larger.
Okay.
A bunker, they get up to about 14, 15 inches. And they give themselves away because in the water, they slap on the top of the water.
Oh, really?
And when they slap, whatever you see to slap, you take your, take
Okay.
your treble hook,
Sneaky.
you snag them,
Uh-huh.
and then you either cut it up and put it on the hook or live line it.
Now, why do you have to snag the bunker as opposed to catching him like a regular fish?
Okay, bunker only eat plankton. So
Oh,
if you
okay,
try
so
to
they
throw a
won't-
line down,
oh,
they won't
okay.
go after it. So the only way to get them is by snagging them
Okay.
or throwing a throw net over them.
Uh-huh.
You throw the throw net over them, you
So you
live
put the
line.
bunker in and you caught what kind of fish?
I caught striped bass. Now I do want to tell you, yes, I was fishing Great Kills Harbor, but I'm not going to tell you the spot because I don't want to be considered a spot burner. There's nothing worse in the world than giving away the exact spot you're fishing. But Great Kills Harbor's big, so it's not like I'm giving away anything. But yeah, we went out last night and we got a number of really giant striped bass. The only problem is the season doesn't open till midnight of last night. Anyway, so we had to throw the fish back. And we normally throw the fish back anyway because we like to conserve. It's all about next year. And another thing, when I go out on the kayak, I also like to go do the crabbing.
So I have a question. So
Yeah.
what's the oddest fish that you've ever caught in your whole life?
Oh my God!
The
I would have to.
oddest fish.
The oddest fish I ever caught was like a 6.5 foot tarpon.
So what is a tarpon? You don't eat a tarpon
No,
either, right?
I caught a giant tarpon. I was in
6.5
Florida.
feet?
I was in Florida on my kayak,
Yeah.
fishing underneath the bridge in Isla Mirada, and I just caught this giant fish, and I landed it. And at the time, I didn't have a camera, so I just pulled the scale off and stuck it in my wallet. And every time I went out, I'd show people.
So
But
wait, so this tarpon, did you know what kind of fish it was when you caught it?
I did, because the second I caught it, it jumped out of the water, and it was as big as a human. It was
Wow.
like 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
And here I am on my kayak,
Uh-huh.
and this fish jumped clear out of the water, back in the water.
Wow.
It took me about 45 minutes to reel it in. I pulled it onto my kayak, and at the time we didn't have cameras or anything like that. So, like I said, I just pulled one of his scales off. His scales were this big.
So that was in Florida. So what's the oddest fish you caught in New York State?
The best fish I ever caught in New York was 7 years ago on this date. I caught one of the largest striped bass ever in the whole
Really?
East Coast of the United States.
Wow.
On the kayak, I landed a 51-inch, that was me, I hit this.
Oh, okay. Don't hit the mic.
I don't hit the mic. I caught a 51-inch, 46-pound striped bass.
Did you get a picture of that one?
I got tons of pictures of it. Not only did I get pictures of
Okay.
it, I went to bed the next day. I took it out and went all over Staten Island and showed off my catch. And yeah, that was 7 years ago on this date, opening day, striped
So
bass.
let me ask you a question. So did you ever go outside to fish and not come back with not even one fish?
Rarely. I
Really?
am pretty good at catching. I know where to go. If I go for striped bass, I usually get one. If I go for bluefish, I'll get one. If I go for blackfish or many different species of fish, whatever I target.
So
I
what's
usually,
the blackfish? You eat blackfish or not?
Blackfish I eat. Blackfish live in the rocks. They get very big, and you use crab for bait.
Now, the reason I'm asking you all these questions about fish is I'm a very limited knowledge of fish. So I can tell you, like, I've had fillet of sole and fillet of flounder, tuna, lobster, and fake crab. So that's my
Yeah.
knowledge. So a blackfish, what
Blackfish-
does that taste like?
Everyone on Staten Island that fishes loves blackfish. Blackfish live
What
in the
does it look
rocks.
like?
It looks like kind of like a largemouth bass, but black.
Uh-huh.
They have white enamel teeth, just like humans.
Wow.
And big lips.
Uh-huh.
So when you see them, you open their lips, they have giant teeth. Big. The reason why they have giant teeth is striped bass love to eat crab.
Ah.
And they've learned the ability to knock rocks over at the bottom of the ocean and eat the crabs underneath the rocks.
Wow.
So whenever we go fishing for blackfish, before we do, we go underneath the rocks. We get the crabs. The crabs are usually about the size of your
Okay,
pinky.
how about lobster?
Okay, I have caught lobster on Staten Island.
Really?
Yes, I go crabbing. I have an interesting way.
Don't tell us where.
I'm not going to tell you where or how, but I go crabbing on my kayak, and I average over 30 pounds an hour,
That's pretty
which
good.
is about a half a garbage can full an hour.
Okay.
And so that's my, and I get the crabs. I get a lot of the soft shell crabs, and I don't like to eat crab because.
So how long ago did you start fishing?
Okay, I'm 56. I started when I was like about 5. And
5 years old.
yeah, I fell off a roof when I was 11. That's why I'm in a wheelchair. I've been in a wheelchair since 1975, 44 years. And since then, I've always liked kayaking, fishing on the beach, but the beach, the water would come up, and I'd have to wheel backwards and all.
Yeah.
And so I said, the heck with this. About
No,
20
wait a minute. You can wheel that on the sand?
Not very well.
I was
But
going to say.
not very well. I'm usually
yeah.
with friends, and they got to pull me back. So to do what we do, what I do is I about 27 years ago, 27 years ago, I decided to get a kayak. I bought 2 kayaks, and now after 27 years later, I have about maybe 6 or 7 kayaks.
Wow.
I'm always looking. If you live on Staten Island, you want to come out kayaking with me, you could always find me, and I'm always really looking for people to go out. So yeah, that's it. I do the.
So wait a minute. So
Yeah, no.
you can swim?
Yes, I actually.
When did you learn how to swim?
I'm paralyzed from my belly button down
Yeah.
since 1975, but I've always been able to swim. I don't know why. And in about 1982, I got a volunteer job at New York University Hospital. They had a swimming pool.
Oh,
So I used to work on Wall Street.
So what did you do as a volunteer for the hospital?
Oh, I just used to just go out with the new patients and show them how to swim and
Okay.
show them the. And at the time, I was in the wheelchair. I worked on Wall Street, and I lived in Midtown Manhattan. I used to, most days wheel up. I like to wheel a lot. I'm very much into health. I've always been into exercising and eating right. And I know I look pretty good for 56 years old.
Yeah, you're okay for 56.
Yeah. And
And that's from being outdoors a lot. Outdoors really makes people healthy.
now the other thing I like to do is when I go fishing a lot, I like to catch my own bait. So I go to a certain place and I reach my hand into the mud and I pull out giant clams, big fat giant clams, crack them and cut them up and use them for bait. Well, one day I was reaching my hand into the ground and I was like, wow, this isn't a clam. I pulled it up. It was an old bottle.
Wow.
And it just so happened I came across a place on Staten Island where they started dumping garbage in the 1850s at this place. And no one would know it now because it's all, back to nature and all. But the place is loaded with bottles. And I'm always looking for people.
Okay, so tell
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Tell me.
I'm interested. Yeah.
I know you're interested in finding people to look for bottles.
Yes, if people come out with me
kayaking.
on the kayak, I know places where we can go, and you get to keep the bottles, and they they sell for some good money on eBay.
Okay, but we don't sell anything.
No, we don't
and-
sell anything. I'm not trying to sell anything.
No, let me do the talking on this
Sure.
part. We don't sell anything, but what we do is try to get people to connect. Because the whole thing is about community, and you can
Right.
connect with community.
So
Community can connect
ultimately,
with you.
if
And
you
I want to put a close up on the bottles. Don't touch them.
yes, I do.
I'm going to put the camera on the
I
bottles.
have some bottles over here that
This
I
will give you
found
an
in
idea.
the ocean. What I do is I go out at low tide. I usually go out on a full moon low tide, and these are bottles that I found. These bottles are all before 1880. They're around 1880, 1890. I don't know what.
1800s?
Yeah, these are really old bottles. And what I do is I find them in the mud. And what's really cool about it is what I do, I collect, at one time there were around 60 different bottle companies on the island. And so what I would do is go all over, I go all over Staten Island at low tide, and I look in the water for old bottles. And now my walls are covered in old bottles. And so that's that. Yeah.
So I'm going to put the other camera back on you, I believe.
Okay.
Let's see if we can get that back. Hold on a minute.
Yeah, and I,
There you
going
go.
back a little, I raised the worms,
Mm-hmm.
and I had the city come to my house about 10 years ago and check out my worm farm. And I was given, I got a job working for the city. I worked for a company called Grow New York City, and I do composting. Like if you live on Staten Island and you throw your fruit and vegetable scraps out, instead of them going in the garbage, I collect them at the farmers market at the Staten Island Mall.
That's what I like. I like getting to talk to you at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
I get all the information I need about composting and about worms and about vegetables, about everything. In fact, I'm going to put your email on for 1 second towards the end of the show. We've got about 8 minutes left of the show. Is there something other topic that you want to talk about while we got 8 minutes left?
Yeah. Well, just that, again, like I'm always looking.
Oh, wait, I want to know who taught you how to swim? Like, how did you learn how to swim? You
Oh,
just jumped in
okay.
the water or
Oh,
what?
no, yeah. We used to go to the bottom of Hillside Terrace. We used to go to the bottom of Hillside Terrace in Great Kills, and there was a dock we used to go out on. And we used to jump in the water and swim. And I used to, at first, hold on to the side, and then I realized I could swim. And we used to swim across Great Kills Harbor in the early 80s. And then we'd be
So
like,
now, how do you do this fishing in a kayak? I've been in a kayak once. It's a
Okay.
boat with a small opening. So how do you bring fish back in the kayak?
okay. Okay, if they're under like 25 pounds,
Right.
then I can just slide them into my boat. I have a sit-inside kayak.
Wait, what's a sit inside?
A sit-inside kayak, there's two types of kayak. Sit on top or sit inside.
Right.
99% of people have sit-on-top kayaks.
Right.
Me being in a wheelchair, needing
Uh-huh.
and I need help from other people, my kayak only weighs 36 pounds. So people help me. I leave two kayaks on the roof of my truck.
Right.
Oh yeah, I got a black Jeep. You'll see it all over Staten Island. I leave two kayaks on the roof of my truck all year round, all summer long. And then I need help. I just need a very bare minimum of help getting the boats down. Then we bring the boat, we bring it to the water. I jump out of my wheelchair, jump into the kayak. We take the wheelchair, throw it back in my truck, lock the truck up, and then we go out fishing. And
So the kind of help that you use when you have friends over is like they're helping you lift the kayak off the boat and
Yeah, and
off the truck and putting the kayak back up.
Yes. Now, when the boat comes off when the kayak comes off the truck, I'm able to hold the back of the kayak,
Right.
and someone can hold the front,
Okay.
and so I can just, help along. I try to help out as much as I can.
And once the kayak is in the water or on the water,
What-
can you get in the kayak by yourself?
Yes. Then I get in the kayak. Now, certain things we always bring. We always bring life jackets. We always
Oh,
bring.
yeah, I was going to ask you
We
about
always
that.
bring radios.
That's so
Everyone
important.
has a radio. We have to be safe.
Wait, stop. What
Yeah.
kind of radio?
Oh, just
You mean like a walkie-talkie?
a walkie-talkie.
Okay.
And we usually stay online. Well, we just.
So you talk on the walkie-talkie, so that's that.
We have a
you
certain,
good connection. Okay.
We have a certain channel that we
Right,
stay
okay,
on.
okay.
And then in case anything goes wrong, if someone falls in the
Okay,
water.
so here's a good question. At 5 minutes left we
Yeah.
got, but I got a good question.
Yeah.
I hope you know I'm asking you questions what
That's
I think
okay.
our viewers might ask.
Yes.
So you're out there on a kayak. Somebody wants to go out kayaking, and you have radios. But what if somebody wants to go kayaking and they don't have a radio?
Oh,
Can they still go kayaking or not?
oh, sure. It's just a matter of safety.
Right.
Radios are for safety, but there are places where I can go kayaking where the water is only 3 or 4 feet deep, where the striped bass are giant.
Really?
And yeah, and even if you happen to fall in the water, it wouldn't be over your head anyhow. So you
Okay.
could just walk back to the shoreline. So
that
that's
sounds doable.
yeah. Now, it's if you're on Staten Island, you're in a wheelchair or disabled, and you really, you want to get out and catch giant fish, giant striped bass or bluefish, or if you want to come catch blue crab, you can look me up. I will definitely call you and take you out. And I don't really need much help getting the kayaks down. Almost anyone can do it. And a guy like me, I've been paraplegic now for 44 years. And you'd ask yourself, how can a guy be paraplegic for 44 years and still be happy? I mean, I don't have any feeling from my waist down for 44 years. And the truth is, I'm as happy as they come. And the reason why is I have about 15 things in my life that totally make me happy. We didn't touch on my garden. I have a giant organic.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back again, talk about the garden.
I have a giant organic
And I want to
garden.
hear lots about the greenhouse. I'm very interested in a greenhouse. Did you build it yourself?
No, I bought it. I bought it about 15 years ago. But I've used it for so many different things. I've used it for raising fish.
How did the greenhouse turn out during Hurricane Sandy?
Oh, no problem.
It stayed?
Oh yeah,
That's good.
yeah. It's not made of glass. It's made out of double pane plastic, and it has automatic heat, automatic coolant. But I never put it on because by this time of the year, it's warm enough in there to raise vegetables and get them going. You're supposed to start your tomatoes 8 weeks early. I got all my tomatoes already this big. I'm very much into like getting out and enjoying. I have a 7-speed bike that I drive. If you're ever in Great Kills, you might see me. I have a 7-speed bike that I drive just with my arms. I take Highland Boulevard down to Tottenville and then Amboy Road back to Great Kills. I like to do 6 to 8 miles a day, and and I'm happy I got my girl Anna.
Well, keep talking. So what's the best thing that happened to you this year?
I'd have to say the best thing that happened to me this year is that they rehired me at my job.
Well, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good thing.
This is my 8th year working there, and it totally makes my summer complete. Because I get to go to work one day and, at the farmer's market behind Macy's, and, anybody ever out there.
So let me ask you something.
Yeah.
So you go kayaking early in the morning or late at night?
That's it.
Early in the morning?
Okay. If we go out at night, we wear flashlights. You go to Home Depot.
And just for your information, this isn't any promises or guarantees or anything. What we're giving is information. And so if people want to, do something like that, they're going to feel free to contact you, and you can contact us, and then we'll contact you either way.
Yeah.
So you can go out in the morning. You know what? On a Saturday, do you go out in the morning on a Saturday at all?
I do. Well, Saturday's the day I work at my job. It's the only day I work.
Okay.
But when I get out of work and I come home, I'm usually home by 4 o'clock. If no one's taking care of Mom. My mom's 90.
Oh, you got a minute left.
My mom's 93, and we all help take care of her. But
So tell us about some of your favorite things to do all year round. Watch the clock. You got a
Okay.
minute and 5 seconds left, and I'm going to put the disclaimers on and all.
yeah, I'm really, really into just getting out, enjoying the outdoors. I love. I'm really into like going hunting. I do a lot of camping. I do a lot of fishing, a lot of outdoor activities. Just getting out of the house. And the other thing is I like to stay healthy because I look so good. It's because I take care of my body. And, I like to eat good, healthy food. And my life is really good. I got a great life. I'm happy, healthy, and
So when are you going fishing again?
I'm going fishing again. I would go tonight, but it's too windy.
Yeah,
On the
it's not
kayak,
really warm yet, though.
if the weather, if it's higher than, let's say.
Wait, say goodbye to our guests. We got 8 seconds.
All right,
and
you
we'll
guys,
see
it's
you
been a
another
pleasure.
time.
And anytime